All right, Nick, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. They retained a lot of their coaches this offseason. Some coaches went on to do bigger and better things, but I think the point remains that there is a bigger and better picture in Detroit about the culture, and we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, Miles, before we get into that, Lions fans, we want to hear from you guys in the comment section. But look, this team is on the rise. A lot of really talented players on this roster. But look, we've all been there as fans. There's always one or two guys you really wish would go off and play for someone else. You know, you want the Lions to cut or trade or whatever. Let us know in the comment section below that one guy you really want the Lions to get rid of this offseason. Let us know who you think that player should be. But all right, Miles, what you got? What's the latest out of Detroit?
Yeah, Nick, and that question might be harder than people think because it seems as if all the players want to stay and play for the
Yeah.
Lions, alluding to that culture shift that we talked about earlier. And someone else who wanted to stay with the Lions is none other than Ben Johnson, Nick. And he came on today in a press conference and talked about a little bit of why he wanted to stay with the Detroit Lions. And he said, and I'm going to quote him here, "It's really simple for me. It starts with this place and these people. I've been here for 4 years now, and I believe in Sheila Hamp and what she's doing. Rod Wood, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes. It starts at the top, and it has trickled down. This is encouraged. This is as encouraged I've been in my 4 years with the direction the Lions are headed." So he just feels very comfortable with the front office, very comfortable with the coaching staff, the general manager, and the overall direction. And he mentioned it in his statement, Nick. It starts at the top. And if you make good decisions at the top, it trickles all the way down to the organization. And we talk about this again and again, but it's really nice to hear just over and over again, just everyone coming out reaffirming the Lions are building a new culture. It starts at the top. All the changes that make are coming down, and they really seem to be headed in the right direction.
Well, it's not only the fact they're building a new culture, they're building a winning culture, right? Because you can obviously have a new culture and a fun culture and a culture people want to be part of, but that can be a lazy partying culture, that kind of thing. They have a winning culture. When you're a guy like Ben Johnson, a coach on the rise, like he was taking interviews for other coordinators, other head coaching positions. He could potentially made a lot more, I'll say, prominent positions potentially throughout the NFL. He decided to come back to the Detroit Lions because he feels this gives him a great chance to win. He wants to be part of a winning team, and that's why he understands the culture is about winning in Detroit, right? And it's one of those things we kind of lose sight of because you want to hear about, oh, great culture. You always have some of those teams that have players, coaches, and things like that, and they never really work out. They kind of fizzle out. They don't last very long for any number of reasons. The Lions have been that weird combination, right, where they have a players coach environment where all the players want to come back and play, but they also have a coaches coach environment, right? It's like Bill Belichick and Nick Saban mixed with like Mike McDaniel of Miami. Like this is such a weird deal they've got going on here in Detroit, and everyone kind of loves it. That's why everyone wants to come back. And it's just one of those things, right? I think the momentum is building further and further. And if you look at that division, Miles, if you look, the Vikings, they're a little overrated, kind of a fraud last year. The Packers
Who
probably going to be a
knows?
little bit easier at quarterback, right? They're probably going to be beatable there. Bears, I think they're on the right track. They got a long way to go. I mean, this team is probably the number one team in this division right now, don't you think?
Yeah, I think the Lions are trending way up in the division where the Bears are a good bit behind the Lions, but
Yeah.
they're also trending up, but the Lions are on a much further scale than they are. And then the Packers and the Vikings are, I guess you could say, trending down in a way, depending on what happens in the offseason. But I want to go back to Ben Johnson's press conference because it's something you touched on, Nick, and it's the coach. And he talks about Dan Campbell and how much Campbell impacted his decision to stay. He said he is a rock, and he feels very fortunate to have him as the coach. And he says guys, players, coaches, anyone that comes in that doesn't have the same experience with Dan Campbell, he thinks that they will come to appreciate him and just see how special of a coach that he really is. And he just has a very good vision for the team as a whole. And so he goes on to talk about their friendship and how great of friends they are. So I really just think Ben Johnson went out into the world, got all of these great, whether it's head coach, offensive coordinator position, interviews. He's sitting there, and it's like that thing you're sitting in an interview, and in the back of his mind, he's like, well, do I want to leave Dan and the guys, like Jared, all these guys? Do I want to leave them? And it's like when you're in an interview thinking about the place that you're working at before, he's probably like, nah, this is not the right time for me to move on. I want to go back home. And because he does allude to what a home playoff game would be like in Detroit. And I, for one, think that would be probably one of the most electric environments if Detroit can get a home playoff game, and I think that is Ben Johnson's plan for this season.
Yeah, and that's sort of the genius of Dan Campbell, right? Because he's the head coach, right? Everyone talks about him. He has, his personality and his demeanor, but he is so good about taking all the blame and giving out all the credit. And you got a guy like Johnson, he's obviously a smart, talented guy, but if he goes and works for another coach as an offensive coordinator, it's going to be one of those things where internal to the organization, right? We're not talking about to the media or anything like that. He would get the appearance that the head coach would get a lot of credit. Let's say if he went to the Steelers, just throwing out a team. If the Steelers won 12 games next year, we'd be hearing about how great Mike Tomlin was. Right. And Mike Tomlin wouldn't do a whole lot of pumping up Ben Johnson as an example. Not kind of crap on Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, but that's just how commonplace is in the NFL. Instead, with the Lions, every chance you get, it's Dan Campbell's hyping up Johnson, talking how great he is. And anytime there's some like weird play call or something bad doesn't, goes throughout the game, Campbell's like, hey, that's on me. It wasn't on Johnson. It's on me. It wasn't on defense. It's on me. And I guarantee you, these coordinators, they love that kind of stuff. It makes them want to play and makes them want to coach under that guy and come back to the team. And especially the fact that there are results on the field that, they're winning games. The momentum's heading in the right direction. Right now, there is no reason, and that's what Ben Johnson kind of alluded to be anywhere else in Detroit right now. And frankly, if there's a team to root for and think that they're going to make a big push next season, potentially even to the Super Bowl, who knows? There's no team on the top of that list more than the Detroit Lions.